Hi, my name is Calvin. Some people call me C. Paffy. About a year ago, American cultural YouTuber J.J. McCullough released a list of the 5 canonical American cultural monsters for Halloween.
I was able to come up with this highly scientific breakdown of what cartoon characters are likely to be dressed as when engaged in Halloween-related marketing. The top 5 are vampire, witch, mummy, Frankenstein, and ghost. And then there is Wolfman in like a distant 6th place.
And today I thought it would be fun if I compiled a little movie marathon watch list. Not necessarily in the order of the monsters J.J. McCullough said, but in the orders that I think would make for an exciting Halloween night watching movies. So I've picked one movie for each of those monsters, plus a couple honorable mentions for monsters that didn't quite make his list, but if you want to sub those in, you can. Watching these movies is what I will be doing this Halloween, and if you want to join me, not join me, but, ethereally, be watching the movies at a similar time that I am, I'd like that. So, let's get into the list. The first monster movie that I think you should watch this Halloween is for a mummy. And the movie I've chosen for a mummy is The Mummy. With Brendan Fraser. The reason I've chosen this for the first movie you should watch is it's more action-packed than the rest of the movies on these lists, so I think it's something you should watch earlier into the day, and then as the night gets later, you should go to more, like, dramatic and scary movies. Is there a better mummy movie than The Mummy? I don't think so. I know that, like, Warner Brothers used to have their Monsterverse, and I know that there was a mummy movie back then, but I've never seen it. And are there other mummy movies other than The Mummy? I feel like this one was an obvious pick. So forgive me. The second movie I think you should watch is for Frankenstein's monster, and that movie is Young Frankenstein.
That's Frankenstein. Again,
this is not a very scary movie for Halloween night. It's funny. It's a cult classic. It's a nice Mel Brooks movie, which they're always nice. Gene Wilder, who normally I would argue that Gene Wilder is one of the more overrated actors, but as Frankenstein's grandnephew, as the sort of picking up the torch for the original Frankenstein, which, by the way, I know that it's not called Young Frankenstein because he's young, it's called Young Frankenstein because he's a descendant of the original Frankenstein. Young Frankenstein kind of makes me think like a young Victor Frankenstein, and Victor Frankenstein is like 16 in the novels or something, or he's going off to college, so I guess he's like 17 or 18, but he's pretty young. So, I don't know, Gene Wilder. I don't know if you're a young Frankenstein. Great in the movie, though. Good for some laughs, sort of midway through your Halloween afternoon. And a perfect Frankenstein's monster movie. Those two movies, I feel like there is only one choice for Mummy. And although there are multiple Frankenstein's monsters movies, I feel like they're not that great. So now for Witch, Ghost, and Vampire, we're getting into like a little bit more juicy territory for what movies I might pick. And of course, my choices for the best monster movie of this category of monsters are the best choices, so you'll have to watch these movies once I suggest them. The third monster is Witch. This is the newest movie on the list. It's super new. It's Weapons by Zach Kreger.
Are you watching?
Zach Kreger's the director of Whitest Kids You Know. I guess calling it a witch movie is kind of a spoiler, so I'm sorry for that. And I just looked it up. You can rent it on YouTube. So it is out. You can watch it at home. And I know for Witch, I think most people would choose The Witch or Blair Witch Project. I think that Weapons is, even though it's new, it is going to be a cult classic. I really loved this movie. I liked it more than Barbarian, which was Zach Kreger's first, his directorial debut. I think this movie is great, and if you haven't seen it yet, you should really check it out. And I think sort of building up from action to comedy. Now that I fucking think about it, I should have switched Mummy and Frankenstein. Young Frank. No, actually, I stick by my choice. Mummy, and then Young Frankenstein, and then Witch for weapons. It's funny, so I think that sort of funny tone that Zach Cregger brings from his comedy days carries over nicely from the Mel Brooks movie. But I think that it's also has a lot more scary parts than either of the previous two movies. I guess the Mummy is kind of has that gross sort of him rebuilding his body, but I'm not sure if that's like super horror. I feel like Mummy is much more of a adventure movie, basically. But yeah, I think if you watch this third, now we're sort of building up to the sort of Halloween apex. I think trick-or-treaters will start coming out when you watch this movie. I think it's a good third for your movie monster marathon. The next movie is Ghost. I think the number one, it's a solid ghost movie, is going to be The Conjuring.
Vade retro, Satana. Sancta Michael Arcangeli. Defende nos in prelio.
I almost put Spirited Away for the ghost slot because No Face kind of has that classic sort of ghostly shape. But I think The Conjuring, since it's so baked into American culture, and I think J.J. McCullough, who I'm getting the monster list from, would agree that The Conjuring is a very Americana movie. The Warrens were American demonologists. Their stories baked into the fabric of, especially New England, which is where I'm from. We kind of have this like horror root, right? We have a bunch of horror authors, Edgar Allan Poe, H.P. Lovecraft, Stephen King. We also have like the Salem witch trials. There are all these awesome like colonial sites, colonial graveyards. I think the Conjuring House being in Rhode Island, it has this very northeastern Americana vibes that I think would be perfect. So this will be like peak trick-or-treating hours. So you're probably going to get interrupted by kids all the time when you're watching this movie. But if you're in a neighborhood like mine, you probably only get like a half dozen trick-or-treaters, and that's it. So not too bad. Like, solid ghost movie, The Conjuring. Ghost was the hardest one to narrow down. There are a lot of ghost movies out there, but I do think that The Conjuring is just cemented in my mind, and probably in a lot of other people's mind, as what a ghost movie is, what a ghost movie should be. I've got 3 honorable mentions here before I get to our vampire movie. 3 monsters that didn't quite make the cut. That would be zombie, skeleton, and wolfman. I think all 3 of these monsters sort of deserve recognition in the American cultural canon, even if JJ didn't put them on their list, and even if I'm not going to watch these movies. If you would prefer to sub out a movie that I mentioned today with a different monster, like if you hate mummies if you fucking hate mummies, instead of watching The Mummy, I would suggest for Wolfman, American Werewolf in London, which, by the way, I think it's about time we get a sequel to that. I think it's about time we get, an American Werewolf in Tokyo, in Dubai, some of these other foreign cities. For Skeleton, I suggest The Nightmare Before Christmas, which there's some debate if it's a Halloween movie or a Christmas movie, and for that reason, I say that it is a Thanksgiving movie. Just split the difference there. But yeah, Jack Skellington, great guy, sings a great song, the king of the skeletons. And for zombie, I recommend The Evil Dead. There are a lot of zombie movies out there. A lot of them fall into that more... A lot of them are really campy, or a lot of them fall more into that action category, or that comedy category. I think The Evil Dead is just a solid... This is still in the horror category while still being upbeat. So, if you want to sub out any of my 5 monster movies with one of those, it still sort of fits this is what an American canon movie is. Okay. Ending your night with a vampire movie, I've chosen Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Perhaps you should grow a beard.
This is the one with Gary Oldman as Dracula, Keanu Reeves as Jonathan Harker. It's also got Quincy P. Morris in it, who's a character who they always cut because he's like a silly cowboy. But cowboy vampire hunter is like a thing in the American cultural canon. The Van Helsing movie in like 2004, Van Helsing was just a cowboy in that movie. The Supernatural, a show that ran for like 14 years, those guys their name was Winchester. Those guys were cowboys. So I think any Dracula movie that tries to cut out Quincy P. Morris is doing a serious disservice to like the vibe of a vampire movie. It's somewhat scary, but it's more of a drama movie. So if you're aiming for these movies to end at like midnight, which is what I would think. Cooling down from Weapons and The Conjuring with just this like slow drama movie. You're getting ready for bed. You know, it's the night's almost over. Halloween's almost over. I do think that Bram Stoker's Dracula is that movie. You know what I should do? I just had an idea. I will check the run times and give you what time you should start marathoning to finish like at midnight. All right, so after doing some calculations with the run times, I have determined that if you start marathoning The Mummy at 2:05, you should be finishing up Bram Stoker's Dracula at around midnight. I didn't calculate time for switching movies, but I think that's fine because you probably want to end a bit after midnight if you're, you know, what's Halloween on a Friday this year? Yeah. You know, you're not going to work next day. And end a little bit after midnight. Live a little. So yeah, that's my list. This would probably be a more interesting video if I had like the art skills of J.J. McCullough, who did the video I'm basing this off of. But I don't know. I just figured that I'd tell you what I'm doing this year. I'd make a couple videos, or I'd make a video about it and let you know. But I think it'll be fun. But you know, what do I know? I'm retarded.